This is my kitchen table, and it's also my filing system. Over much of the past 3 decades, I've been an investor. The highest calling of mankind, I've often thought, was private equity. And then I started interviewing.
While I watch your interviews, I know how to do some interviewing.
I've learned in doing my interviews how leaders make it to the top.
I asked him how much he wanted. He said $250. I said fine. I didn't negotiate with him, and I did no due diligence.
I have something I'd like to sell, and how they stay there. You don't feel inadequate now because being only the second wealthiest man in the world, is that right? I'm in the Hall of Flags at the Commerce Department in downtown Washington. Just had a conversation with the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. She is clearly one of the most talented people in her generation. Harvard graduate, Rhodes Scholar, Yale Law School graduate, venture capitalist, treasurer of Rhode Island, 2-term governor of Rhode Island. President Biden asked her to serve as Secretary of Commerce, and she is one of the point people helping to get through his infrastructure legislation. Many presidents have proposed infrastructure proposals and bills, but very few have gotten them through. So why do you think President Biden's bills will likely get through, if you do?
I think we will. I think we will. I have had numerous conversations with people on Capitol Hill, and there is bipartisan support for the bill. Maybe not all of the bill and all aspects of it, but I think there's a growing recognition that we've kicked the can long enough, and there's a backlog of infrastructure in every state in America, and I think this will be the moment. And the president is determined, so that helps.
The president has 2 types of infrastructure. Traditionally, infrastructure is bridges and airports, toll roads, and so forth. And he has that in his first part of his infrastructure bill. He has a second part that's the caring part, which deals with, let's say, elderly care, child care, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, and so forth. Why did he do it that way? And are people confused when he calls things relating to people infrastructure?
Yeah, yes, people are confused. I think he did the right thing. I think investments in the care economy and in those systems, which, by the way, are fraying all over America. I know it from Rhode Island, my own state. We need to rebuild systems of training, IT, so these workers can have IT, wages. It's vital. By the way, you can't go to work and be productive if you can't have good access to child care or elder care. So are people confused? Yes. Are there some Republicans that are balking at the inclusion of the care economy? Yes. But I like our chances of getting it through. The president's committed.
Explain this to the American people. We have a $1.9 trillion stimulus package the president got through at the beginning of the administration. There were no tax increases to pay for it. We borrowed all that money. Why not do the same thing with the infrastructure bill? Why not just pass it and borrow the money? Why do we need tax increases?
Call it old-fashioned, but the president thinks we ought to pay for our investments, just as any family would. You have to pay the bill. You can't put everything on the credit card and not pay it. The rescue package was an emergency. There were lives on the line. We have to get the vaccine out. We had to meet the needs of the pandemic. That was a crisis, an emergency response, and so he felt it was appropriate to push for that. These investments, he feels very strongly, ought to be paid for. His proposal is to go ahead and raise taxes on companies. He's been very clear. His red line is no one making less than $400,000 a year will see a penny of their taxes increased. And by the way, I think it's responsible. We can afford it. Businesses, better than I do. There were dozens and dozens of very profitable multi-billion-dollar companies last year that paid nothing in taxes. Closing those loopholes and using that money to invest in infrastructure is a good investment.
There are 2 different types of tax increases he's proposed. On the first part, the traditional part of the infrastructure bill, he's proposed raising the corporate tax. Some people say that the president might be prepared to compromise at a lower rate. And what is your view on how high the rate needs to be in order to pay for some of the things in that bill?
Well, he has come out where he has come out at 28%. We are willing to compromise, the answer to your question. We think this is a reasonable proposal. It isn't as high as it was. 21% was unreasonably low. And by the way, most business people will admit that. They were expecting it to go back up to something reasonable. And so anyway, we put forth one proposal, investments over an 8-year period, paid for over a 14-year period. But there's compromise, and if the Republicans were to come back with a slightly lower rate, maybe we pay for it over a longer period of time, I'm sure we could find that common ground.
Okay, so your job as Secretary of Commerce, among other things, is to be a liaison with the business community. And so as you were liaison with the business community, what do they say to you? They say, I don't want a higher tax increase, or I can live with something, but don't quote me. What do they tell you?
Exactly. Some have been for it. So Microsoft, Salesforce, a number of companies, Siemens, the auto companies, they've come out for it, in favor of the jobs package. Others have said, yes, there ought to be an increase in the corporate tax rate. Everyone seems to agree that it is wrong that we have so many companies who paid no taxes last year, and we have to close, loopholes that enabled that. A lot of people, maybe they feel 28 is a bit too high, and maybe the 26, 27 might be a better number. But I have made dozens and dozens of phone calls to CEOs across industries. They agree we need big investments in infrastructure. They applaud the president for calling for not just traditional infrastructure. They like the investments in research and development, broadband, technology, semiconductors, and they know that higher corporate taxes are a way to pay for it.
Now, people in Washington often measure one's power by how long it takes to get your call returned. So when you're governor of Rhode Island, you're calling the CEO of Microsoft. I don't know if you get your call returned right away, probably you do. What about when you're Secretary of Commerce? How long does it take to get your call returned?
It's pretty quick so far. It depends who you're calling, obviously. And because of my career in business and my career in public service, I already have strong relationships with many people in corporate America, so they know me, they return my call. But look, here's what I would say. There's a general desire to help this administration be successful, because people realize we have to be successful. The business leaders I'm talking to, they know we need to make these investments. They know we need to compete. They know we have to compete with China. They want to help us be successful. So when I call on behalf of this administration, so far calls are returned speedily and they're engaged.
So let's talk about the individual tax increases that are part of the CARE part of the infrastructure bill, because that probably will be more controversial, be my guess.
Yes.
So the president has said no tax increases, as you say, for anybody who's making $400,000 or below, and the people above that, they will see a tax increase that could go as high as 39.6%.
Yes.
So do you expect that will be compromised as well, or do you think the president is determined to get everything he's proposing?
He's proposing it today, so I wouldn't want to lead with our chin and say we're going to compromise on day one. But I will say this. The president wants bipartisan action. And if compromising is a part of that, it's what he wants to do. He's been crystal clear with us. The only thing that's unacceptable is getting nothing done. We have to get things done. So the capital gains, treating capital gains like ordinary income, absolutely will be controversial. Is there room for compromise? Maybe. But, he feels that we have to raise those taxes, and we'll compromise as we go.
Talk about your background for a moment. Some people may not know your background. So you grew up in Rhode Island.
I did.
And were you the child of privileged parents, very wealthy parents, or not?
No, I was not. My dad worked his whole life at a watch factory, the Bulliver Watch Factory, Rhode Island was once the jewelry manufacturing capital of America. My mom stayed at home with three kids. I grew up in a pretty small house. There were 6 of us. My grandfather lived with us. He was an Italian immigrant. I joke that when I went to college, when I went to Harvard, I was so excited because I got my own bed, because I shared a bed with my sister until then. So, like, we were a working class family. We weren't poor. My dad lost his job in his late 50s, so things got tougher after that. But we were just kind of, working class Rhode Islanders.
Now, Rhode Island is a small state, as I mentioned before, but everybody must know everybody, because Senator Reid from Rhode Island says that he was your babysitter at one point. Is that true?
It is a fact. It is a fact. He was my next door neighbor. We went to the same high school. By the way, as did Tom Donlin, former National Security Advisor, and Mike Donlin. We all went to the same high school. We all knew each other. We all, the Donlins and my family, we all made a living as kids working at the same summer club on the same beach. So it's a
they're
small
all
place.
talented people, but only one of them became a Rhodes Scholar, and that was you.
That would be me, yeah.
So you won a Rhodes Scholarship. Only 32 are picked every year. And then after that, you went to Yale Law School. Very few people get into Yale Law School. So with a Harvard degree, an Oxford degree, a Yale Law School degree, you could have gone anywhere. Why did you go back to Rhode Island? Not that it's not a great place, but many people go to New York, Washington, Los Angeles. What propelled you to go back to Rhode Island?
Because I loved it. I loved the place. I felt I owed something to the community. And there's something special about building businesses in the community where you're from and seeing them flourish in a community you care about.
So you ran initially for the treasurer position of Rhode Island. Why did you want to be treasurer of Rhode Island? People wouldn't say Harvard, Oxford, Yale Law School, that person should be treasurer of Rhode Island.
You know, it's funny, when I ran, that was the reaction I received. I called my parents to say I was doing this, and they said, "But Gina, you have such a good job." My mother started to cry. Politics is such a dirty business. I believe in service. I believe in public service. And I was qualified for the job. I actually had a finance investing background, which is what the treasurer does. I was chair of the investment committee. I just believe in service.
But when you got the job, you started cutting pensions, and that was very controversial. Why did you do that, and how did you take that opposition to that and enable you to become governor?
So I didn't cut pensions, I would say. Everyone kept what they earned. The system was broken. You know, for better or for worse, I was able to do the math and understand very quickly that the system would run out of money before too long, and we would have to go to people and say, "I'm sorry, we're going to cut your pension in half." It was dishonest. I couldn't live with the dishonesty of telling teachers and firefighters that their pension would be there when I knew it wouldn't. So we fixed it, by the way. The pension system today is stronger than it's been in decades. And everyone also said I wouldn't be reelected, but I was elected handily, because I think people want the truth, and I think people want people like me to solve problems.
Right, so you were reelected, and you're then elected governor of Rhode Island. Many people said you wouldn't be elected governor as well, reelected as well. So you're governor of Rhode Island, and many people thought you could be running for president this time. You chose not to do so. Why did you decide to give that position up to become Secretary of Commerce? Because in Rhode Island, you were the big everything. You're the 800-pound gorilla, because you're the governor, and a lot of power, and you were very powerful in the governors associations and so forth. And Secretary of Commerce is a great job, but you're not the president. So why did you decide, when the president asked you to do this,
Because I wanted to be on the team that helps America build back. In many ways, we're really struggling right now, and as a nation, as an economy, and I want to be on the team that gets us back on our feet, and that was very appealing to me.
You mentioned briefly your business background. You were governor, you were treasurer, but you were actually in the venture world, I think. What was that you did? You had started your own venture fund?
Yes. So for about 11 years, I was in the venture capital business, first at a firm in New York, and then was a co-founder of Point Judith Capital. We were an early stage venture firm. I focused on healthcare, so I invested in medical device and healthcare IT companies, which I loved actually. And that experience enables me to, be a better Commerce Secretary. I know entrepreneurs, what it takes to have innovation. Another thing that we run here is the patent office. That's in Commerce. You know, I saw that strong patents matter in order to protect innovation.
Now, the Secretary of Commerce has been is an unusual position. You have so many different parts of the Commerce Department. Been called by some Noah's Ark because you have so many different things that were put together. The NOAA's here, the Weather Bureau is here, so many tariffs are here, so many things.
Space commerce.
Census too.
Yep.
So when you took the job, did you realize how many different disparate things you have to deal with? And did other secretaries of commerce who had this position before say, this is what you have to worry about? And did you get any good advice from people?
Yeah, so I've talked to many and I got terrific advice. I think that's what makes the job fun and hard. It's hard. It is hard to learn about the details of fisheries management, trade, census, space commerce, tariffs, semiconductors. But for me, that's part of, it's intellectually fascinating. And I'd like to think if you put your back into it, you can have a big impact across a whole range of topics.
So when you decided to take this position, you called your mother and you said, guess what, I'm giving up being governor of Rhode Island, I'm going to be Secretary of Commerce. What did your mother say?
She's 90 now, and she said, I hope you can help Biden.
Let's talk about your job as Secretary of Commerce. Historically, the secretaries that I've known have said, well, I have two jobs. One is to represent the president's views to the business community, and then the other job is to represent the business community's views to the president.
Yeah.
And both are not easy.
Yeah,
so
right.
Do you have those two perspectives as well? Is that what you see yourself as liaison to the business community and also the president's, and the liaison to the business community to the president?
Yeah, that is a big part of the job. And I think it's important for the business community to know we want to hear from them. You know, that is very important. You know, I am very available to the business community, and we want engagement. And I bring that information to the president, who, by the way, is genuinely very interested to know what do we have to do so American businesses can compete.
Right now, there's a shortage of semiconductors, it appears, in the United States. Is that because of supply chain problems, COVID, and what are you doing and the president doing about this?
It's because of supply chain problems. We have to shore up our supply chain. We have become overly dependent on a few suppliers in a few countries, and we need to make investments. So what we are doing is working with Congress to pass a $50 billion semiconductor supply chain fund so we can incentivize semiconductor companies to manufacture chips in America.
So when you were looking at the campaign, we looked at the campaign, President Biden didn't support a lot of things that President Trump did. So some people are surprised that he's kept the tariffs in place. You oversee the tariffs. The steel tariffs that he put in place are still there. The tariffs on aluminum are still there. And the tariffs relating to a lot of products relating to China are still there. Is there any insight you can give us about why they're still there?
Although we don't agree with the way the Trump administration handled many things, one of the things is they brought to light the fact that our competition with China is serious. It's a strategic competition that will define our time, and President Biden agrees with that. So we are going to continue to play tough with China. We're going to continue to use all the tools at our disposal to protect American workers and businesses from unfair practices by the Chinese government. And so the reason that we haven't made those changes is really that. We need to continue to be aggressive with China.
European countries aren't happy with the tariffs on steel and aluminum. The president's going to the G7 summit soon. Do you expect we'll see any news relating to that when that summit occurs relating to the tariffs?
I expect a robust discussion between now and then. The Europeans are not happy. I've had many discussions with my counterparts in the EU. They are our allies. Europe, of course, is not a threat to American national security. China's oversupply and flooding their market and our market with cheap steel, that is the national threat, and we need to work with Europe to prevent China from doing that.
So some of your predecessors have done trade missions, taken business people around the world. Right now you can't do that, of course, because of COVID, but the administration has seemed to say we don't really want to have greater access to foreign markets so much so people can build factories overseas. We want them to build them here. Is that part of your ethos as well, not necessarily to have people build things overseas, but maybe build more here?
We need to do both. We need to do both. So I plan to be active in export promotion. We need to help American businesses to export. We do need to continue to have free markets. I mean, even with respect to China, we need to do business there. We need to export there. But right now, we need a domestic focus. And so for at least for the first 18 months, a lot of my focus will be domestically.
Now, you've been running the department to some extent remotely, I guess, because while we're in the department now, a lot of people are not here.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you expect at some point that people will come back and you'll be going back to the way the department was run before, everybody shows up for office work 5 days a week, or what do you think will happen?
Maybe not 5 days a week every week, but certainly predominantly, yes, back in the office. It'll be like business. You know, they'll always, I think work from home is here to stay for a certain part of the week. But look around, this is a ghost town. I mean, I hope in a few months from now you'll see some vibrancy here.
If the American people are watching, they don't know much about the Commerce Department or what the Secretary does. What would you like people to know about the Commerce Department and what your principal goal is as a Secretary of Commerce?
To help more people get back to work in decent paying jobs. It's really very simple. And everything that goes, you know, trade policies that level the playing field so American workers can compete, IP policy that allows innovation to continue, helping startup companies so they can evolve. But all of that fundamentally, at the end of the day, I learned this as governor, David. Americans don't want a handout. They just want a chance to have a decent job. And so I'm obsessed with that. I was obsessed as governor. I'm obsessed with that now. And that's what everything I will do will be through that lens, creating decent jobs.
So when you decided to take this position, you called your mother and you said, guess what, I'm giving up being governor of Rhode Island. I'm going to be Secretary of Commerce. What did your mother say?
And she was excited. She's 90 now, and she said, I hope he can help Biden. You know, that's her. Biden has to be successful. I hope he can help him.